And I was like, well, we're going to have to get you to sit somewhere else because I don't know if you noticed this, Michigan Advance, they keep taking these side profile shots of these guys. And then, it's like, I look like, who do they take? It's just a straight out side profile shot. And I'm looking at this, and I said, I need to get a haircut.
Just got it.
Yeah, it's from the side, and there's like a couple of hairs.
It was a long neck.
So I got a haircut. You guys notice? I saw that at the Michigan Advance, and I said, I better do it. But now I do take issue. I'm starting to worry that maybe the Michigan Advance is pandering to their Democrat owners a little bit, because I read a story yesterday where they said that Whitney Briggs holds regularly scheduled press conferences. I don't think that's true. I don't think it's regularly scheduled, but you got to try to help her. You see this? What a great picture. You see this? This is making a deal, getting Selfridge Air National Guard base done, bringing a new fighter mission to Michigan. Look at what Governor Whitmer and I can do when we work together, and we've done it so many times. And David Eggert, we're happy you're here. Welcome back. And you got to see this picture up here if you haven't. Up here, we hung it up last week of Governor Whitmer, President Trump, Leader Nesbitt, and myself at the big Selfridge Air National Guard Day where President Trump announced a new fighter mission for Michigan, something we've been working on, the politicians have been working on for decades. We got it done together with Governor Whitmer and President Trump. So we wanted to commemorate that great moment in bipartisanship, and so we put it up on the wall. So you got to look at it before you leave. Welcome to the Dean of the Press Corps, Tim Skubik. Great job you're doing. Great job you're doing. You get on Fox 2 like every day. See, people think he just does off the record. He's on every channel every day. What I didn't realize, it's so early in the morning I didn't see it, but I have some new monitoring software. I'm seeing all of it. So great job you're doing, Tim. Just wanted to, we got some slides today. I know the press likes the slides, so they like that one. I just wanted to point out some things and by the way, this is not a regularly scheduled press conference. I think since we do this every week, it might be a regularly scheduled press conference. If they just do it 2 or 3 times total in a year, that's not a regularly scheduled press conference. But we know that Winnie Brinks and the Democrats are trying to claim, first of all, that there's no waste, fraud, and abuse in the state budget. We'll get to that later. But they're also making a lot of misleading claims about the House education budget. So I just wanted to work through a few of them for you. You may not be able to see them from over there. But the Democrats and Brinks try to say that the Republican budget, which, by the way, the House Republicans, we passed an education budget that's been sitting in the Senate chamber for many, many months and weeks. And this is what it does. It actually, look at this. This is from the analysis, the nonpartisan analysis. It maintains current year appropriation for at-risk funding. So Democrats try to say that the House budget, oh, they couldn't hear me when I did that? Well, I don't need that. I'll just not do it again. All right. Anyway, now I have 2 mics. How does that look on the video? Is that one? I don't know. Hopefully it looks good. So anyway, it says that that we got at-risk and special education. That's false. I mean, we actually maintain the at-risk funding, and when they talk about helping the school districts that are the lower income school districts, the way that that's done is through the at-risk funding. What the at-risk funding does is it puts more money into it puts more money into the school districts that are not well off financially, because what we see is that we need to put more money and more investment in those lower income districts in order to help those schools get to where they need to on education. That's why the House budget actually keeps the at-risk funding, which is a very false statement by the Democrats. And then we actually increase special education funding by $127 million in the House budget. Now, I heard Winnie Brinks say that we cut it, but you look, according to these documents, we actually increase it 127 million. So we're making big investments in the House budget on education in the school districts that need it the most. And I looked through this list, and a lot of these are in Democrat districts, places like Dearborn, where making big investments in the lower income districts, they benefit the most. And we really want to help lift some of those schools up so that all kids are educated, not just the ones in the wealthy districts. And then with this extra funding for special education, we all know special education, you need more resources in order to help there, because sometimes it's a lot harder to educate people in that area. And that's why we make that investment there. So what Democrats are doing is they're taking our budget, which eliminates a lot of the regulations and empowers local districts, and then they're making very large generalizations, and they're lying. That's why I think it's important to show you we fund at-risk in the House budget, and we fund special education, and we actually increase it by 127 million. So I think that's important. Did you have the next slide? I know you guys hate the slides, but it's important you read this since the Democrats lie. Yeah, and this is very interesting. So this is another thing that the Democrats lie about. So this came out from the Michigan Department of Education on August 19th, 2025, okay? And it points out the State House budget would place in a single funding category several essential items, including but not limited to universal school breakfast and lunch, funding for English learners, per pupil funding for mental health and school safety, early literacy coaches, career and technical education programs, and assessments to be allocated on a per pupil basis. So this came out from the Michigan Department of Education, which is controlled by Democrats. So I just want to point out that when the media runs stories, scaring people into believing that these school lunches are not available, I would encourage them to look at this guidance from the Michigan Department of Education, which clearly says the State House budget funds school breakfast and lunch, okay? And by the way, under the House budget, we could do even more. We could do dinner, they could do snacks, they can fund any meals they want, because what our budget does is it puts it in a place where the schools have the flexibility to use it on any of these things or other things. And so the Democrats are just straight lying with their fear-mongering and rhetoric, and I know that our friends in the Capitol Press Corps are smarter than to fall for those partisan tricks. But we thought we'd put the quote up here from the Michigan Department of Education. So what's the next one? Oh, look at this. This is my favorite one. So I've talked about how important it is to make investments in schools and how important it is to invest in our K through 12 system. This is very important to notice. If you look at the governor's recommendation, the Senate's recommendation, and the House's recommendation, and Travers, you see this? He's a fair journalist. The biggest one, the House education budget. It's actually bigger than the Senate education budget and the governor's education budget. So the House proposes to spend the most on education, but yet you hear radical left leaders like Winnie Brinks say that we have to make a choice between roads and education. That's not true. We fund education more than the Democrats do, more than the governor does, but yet we have a plan to put $3.1 billion into roads. So you do not have to pick between education and roads. You can do education and roads. You just have to cut out all the pork projects for the lobbyists and all the corporate giveaways, something that the Democrats are afraid or do not want to do. Excuse me. So hopefully the media will report that the House education budget is bigger. We actually spend more money on education than's ever been spent before, and more than the Democrats do. And so if you're one of these schools, or if you're a parent, the good news is everyone, whether it's the governor, the House Republicans, or the Senate, we're all talking about putting more money into education than they have this year. So there's no reason why any cuts would have to be made to education. But importantly, the House Republicans propose spending the most on education. That's why a lot of people like our plan and support our plan, because it spends more on education than the Democrats' plan. But we give them the flexibility to trust the local school districts instead of giving all the money to the lobbyists and pork projects that are donors to a lot of Democrat politicians. You want to go to the next one? Okay, so I wanted to talk about this. So, we're talking about this enormous growth in state government under Gretchen Whitmer. And so I just wanted to show you a few of these departments so you get an idea of how much these departments have grown since Governor Whitmer became governor. And so when politicians like Winnie Brinks and Kevin Hertel say that there's no waste, fraud, and abuse in this state government budget, this is why the public doesn't believe them. Look at this. So the first column on these slides is going to be the last budget under Republican Governor Rick Snyder. And then the second column is the current budget under the Democrat trifecta. Now, you know that the voters were so outraged by what this Democrat trifecta did that they replaced the House Democrats with the House Republicans, and we were the only chamber in the country that flipped from Democrat to Republican in the last election, and this is why, because of all the waste, fraud, and abuse that Democrats have put in this budget. So I just want to give you, we probably got 8 examples. I could show you every single department, but I know you guys have other stories to cover. But you look at the Attorney General, it's a 22% increase in that department since Dana Nessel became Attorney General. And the interesting thing about this budget is there's one line item pretty much for 90% of the budget called operations. So when, the ultimate Lansing insider, Sarah Anthony, says that she's looking at every line in the budget, I looked at every line in the budget. I said, it's pretty easy if a whole department is basically one line item called operations. So what we need to do is really break this apart and look very carefully at a department like this that is increased by 22% with one line item called operations. We really need to look carefully at that budget and say, where is the Attorney General getting all of this money to lose lawsuits against her political opponents and to drag her political opponents into years and years and years of litigation with no end in sight, and to sue President Trump's administration without the backing of the state of Michigan on these crazy political quests? She'll lose all of those too. The next one. Look at this. Technology, management, and budget. Now, if there was a black hole in state government, it would be this department. This is where all the IT projects live. These billions and billions of dollars of IT projects. Now, you guys remember the MySACWAS? This was the, it was in the families area of DHHS where, when we were dealing with all of the child services issues, and they built this billions and billions of dollars on MySACWAS, and it didn't work, and the caseworkers told us, and we had a lot of House Oversight Committee meetings on this, and they scrap it, and they say, we're going to start over, and we're going to build a whole new software system, 5 or 6 years later, and they're going to, every one of these costs at least $1 billion, by the way. It's amazing. Look at this. 36% in the DTMB budget since the Democrats took control of government, since Rick Snyder left. And so we're looking very carefully at this budget for all the waste, fraud, and abuse, and also to rein in some of these out-of-control IT systems. Where's the next one? You guys have the next one? Okay, agriculture. So this is increased 38%, this budget, under the Democrat trifecta. This is another great example of a budget just rampant with grant programs that contain waste, fraud, and abuse. You got the next one? Oh, the Civil Rights Department. Look at this. 80% increase in the Civil Rights Department. since Rick Snyder was in office under the Democrat trifecta. And so you look at a department like this that has increased 80%. One thing these departments do, and this is a great example, is they create a bunch of fake employees. They call them FTEs. So essentially, you ask for all of these positions that you can't fill, and then you work project it. And so what these departments are doing is they're squirreling away billions of dollars that they get allocated in their budgets and they don't spend, and they get to keep these. We estimate this is over $6 billion in state government that these departments are not spending, that they're being allocated, and they're just holding on to in their accounts. One of the worst offenders would be this department, but there are many departments, whether it's the state police or the corrections departments, those are big offenders. There are a lot of them that do this. But on this one, I know there's hundreds of unfilled government positions. And essentially what Democrats did when they came into power is they greatly increased this budget. They hired hundreds and hundreds of new workers to investigate businesses and investigate employers for all kinds of accusations. And it's out of control, and there's a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse there. You want to go to the next one? Look at this. Labor and economic opportunity, 92% increase under the Democrats. So if you look when Governor Snyder was there, it's about $1.2 billion. Under the Democrat trifecta in their last budget, it's $2.4 billion. This is a 92% increase in the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity. And so you look at that and you say, when Winnie Brinks and Kevin Hertel say there is no waste, fraud, and abuse in a department that increased by 92%, the public don't believe them. And so we're looking very carefully at this. This is where a lot of the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, MEDC programs are. This is where all of the pork barrel projects for the Democrats are. And so this is an area that you're going to see in our upcoming budgets. There's going to be a lot of change to this department. This is one of the departments that has the most waste, fraud, and abuse in state government, is the LEO budget. So we're going to make major changes to that budget. We're going to end a lot of the corporate giveaways, including the SOAR program. We're going to eliminate most of the pork barrel spending in state government. And we're going to invest that money into higher priorities like education and roads. You want to go to the next one? Oh yeah, look at this. Is this the last one? Yeah, we saved this one for last. Eagle, environment, Great Lakes, and energy. This has increased 107% since Governor Snyder left office, okay? Democrats have turned this from a $501 million budget into an over $1 billion budget with an increase of 107%, okay? Now, these are the same Democrats that are telling you that there's no way to fix the roads without gutting Medicaid or taking it out of schools. They failed to talk about a 107% increase in this department. And we're not getting results from this department. All we're hearing are complaints from people that are dealing with permitting problems and all kinds of regulatory problems that's actually stifling job creation in Michigan. And that's what happens when you double a budget like this for a department that's out of control and is really looking to promote anti-job policies and anti-job regulations. Now, when Governor Whitmer got up at her State of the State and asked us to work on regulatory reform and permitting reform, I said, exactly, we'll do that, absolutely. And you see the Rules Committee under Bill G. Schuette putting together a report. In that report, we actually agree with Governor Whitmer on about 70% of her regulation changes, her regulatory reform ideas and licensing reform ideas. If you look at the Lara report, there's a Lara report. Bill Schuette agrees with about 70% of that report. It's kind of interesting, when the governor was in the Oval Office with me, she said, we agree about 70% of the time. And then you look at this this Lara report, it's kind of interesting. It's like she knew what was coming. But with this Lara report and our report, and then the additional permitting and regulatory reform ideas that the Rules Committee and Bill Schuette have, we're not going to need this extra money for the Eagle Department. So I think when you start totaling up these departments, what you really see is that we had the money all along to fix our roads. Remember when Governor Whitmer campaigned and said, I will fix the roads? She had the money all along, but instead of investing that money in roads, the money was invested to grow government and grow departments, and then to spend money on pork spending for politicians, and to give billions and billions of dollars away to companies like GM and Ford and Goshen, and those projects have created no jobs. That's what happened with our state budget. And so when we put forward a budget that shows how you can eliminate $3 billion in waste, fraud, and abuse, and replace it with roads funding that will be permanent roads funding that will ensure that our local roads are fixed once and for all, it shouldn't be such a surprise to all you people. It can be done, but we have to set priorities. And our priorities are not to grow government departments, they're to make investments in roads and education and public safety. That was the last slide? Okay, so I'll just say real quick, I'm grateful to Mayor Duggan, who at his big press announcement earlier this week mentioned me in a very positive way and talked about how we partnered with him to pass legislation out of the House that would fund public safety. And he mentioned, because of Senate Democrats, there's a pot of money sitting there that could be fighting gun violence in these cities with the most violent crime now, but Senate Democrats are blocking that. And he applauded me for working with him on it. I'll just point out, that doesn't help Republican districts. That helps Democrat districts. And in particular, but I'll say that's okay, because if we're trying to lower the violent crime rates, that helps everybody in Michigan. What Democrats in the Senate are doing is they're trying to steer the money to their own districts, okay? We're saying, look, it doesn't matter whose districts it is. Let's just take on the violent crime where it exists, and let's eliminate the violent crime, and let's lower our crime rates, and that helps everybody in Michigan. And that's why Mayor Duggan and myself and the Republicans are working so well together. I think the Democrats in the Senate would be wise to look at some of the things he's doing and embrace him, because they're on the verge of losing a good portion of their own party because he sounds a lot more rational than they do. I mean, look at that press conference yesterday. Look at the contrast. You have Mayor Duggan putting out solutions, and then you have the other Democrats out there just attacking me and complaining about me. What is it that Gretchen Whitmer and Mike Duggan have figured out about working with me that the radical left Democrat leaders like Winnie Brinks and Ranjiv Puri don't get? And what you're seeing here really is the moderate Democrat Party versus this Mandabi in New York wing of the Democrat Party, whose leaders are Ranjiv Puri, who is a protege of Abraham Ayash, we all know that, and Winnie Brinks. These people are leading the radical left, and so this fissure in the Democrat Party is what's causing this problem as we're trying to get a budget done. I hope all of the Democrats unify around Governor Whitmer and let her lead them, because if they do, we will get a budget done very quickly. We've known each other, we know how to make deals, and we've done it in the past, and we'll do it again before September 30th. But the Democrats need to empower her. And I would say, I've reached out to Winnie Brinks. The last time that we talked was because I called her. But I don't think Winnie Brinks wants to get into the negotiation room with me because she knows that I'll get a better deal. And so I think it's going to take Gretchen Whitmer to drag her into that room so we can get a deal. And I hope that we can get a deal. But Winnie Brinks does not want to negotiate at the negotiating table with me. She doesn't know the budget as well as I do. and she doesn't think she'll get a good deal. So they try to put anyone else in there except for her. But ultimately, I hope Governor Whitmer drags her into the room, and the three of us can sit down and make a deal. And if she empowers Governor Whitmer, I think we'll get a deal done very fast. So I'll turn it over to the press if you have any questions. It's okay if you don't.